The rain fell heavily that evening, as if the sky itself was mourning. Inside the small, dimly lit hospital room, 12-year-old Arjun sat on a chair, clutching his father's frail hand. His father, Ramesh, lay on the bed, his face pale and his breathing shallow. The machines around him beeped rhythmically, but the sound only added to the heaviness in the room. "Papa," Arjun whispered, his voice trembling. He had never seen his father so weak. Ramesh had always been his hero, strong, kind, and full of life. But now cancer had taken away his strength, leaving behind a shadow of the man he once was. Ramesh slowly turned his head toward Arjun, his eyes filled with love and sorrow. "Arjun, my son," he said, his voice barely audible. "Listen to me carefully. I won't be here for much longer, but you must be strong. You are my everything, and I know you will grow up to be a good man." Arjun's tears streamed down his cheeks as he shook his head. "No, Papa, don't say that. You'll get better. You have to." Ramesh managed a weak smile and gently squeezed Arjun's hand. "Life doesn't always go the way we want, Beta. But remember, even when I'm gone, I'll always be with you. In your heart, in your memories. I'll never truly leave you." Arjun buried his face in his father's hand, sobbing uncontrollably. He didn't want to let go. He didn't want to face a world without his father, but deep down he knew this was their final moment together. Ramesh took a deep, shaky breath and continued, "There's something I need to tell you. In my desk drawer at home there's a letter. It's for you. Promise me you'll read it when the time comes." Arjun nodded, unable to speak. He held on to his father's hand as if it were the only thing keeping him grounded. The room fell silent except for the sound of the rain and the faint beeping of the machines. A few minutes later, Ramesh closed his eyes, his breathing slowing until it stopped altogether. The machines let out a long, continuous beep, signaling the end. Arjun's world shattered in that moment. He screamed, calling for his father, but Ramesh was gone. The nurse rushed in, but there was nothing anyone could do. Arjun was left alone, his heart broken, his world empty. He didn't know how he would survive without his father, but he remembered Ramesh's last words, "Be strong." As the rain continued to pour outside, Arjun sat in the hospital room, holding his father's hand one last time. He knew his life would never be the same, but he also knew he had to honor his father's memory. Little did he know the letter Ramesh had mentioned would change everything. The days that followed were a blur for Arjun. Relatives and neighbors came to offer their condolences, but their words felt distant, like echoes in an empty room. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, now felt cold and lifeless. Every corner reminded Arjun of his father. The chair where Ramesh used to sit and read the newspaper, the kitchen where he would cook Arjun's favorite meals, and the small garden where they spent countless evenings together. Arjun's mother had passed away when he was just a baby, so Ramesh had been both father and mother to him. Now, with Ramesh gone, Arjun felt utterly alone. He spent most of his time in his room, staring at the walls, unable to process the enormity of his loss. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Arjun remembered the letter his father had mentioned. He walked slowly to Ramesh's study, a room he had always admired but rarely entered. The desk was cluttered with papers, books, and a few framed photos of happier times. Arjun's hands trembled as he opened the drawer and found the envelope with his name written in his father's familiar handwriting. He sat on the floor, his back against the desk, and opened the letter. The words were written in Ramesh's neat, steady script. "My dearest Arjun, if you're reading this, it means I'm no longer with you. I'm so sorry, Beta. I wish I could have stayed longer to watch you grow, to guide you, to see the amazing man I know you will become. But life had other plans for us. I want you to know that you are my greatest pride and joy. Every moment I spent with you was a gift, and I will carry those memories with me wherever I go. But now it's your turn to carry on. You are stronger than you think, Arjun. You have a kind heart and a bright mind, and I know you will find your way. There's something important I need to tell you. A long time ago, before you were born, I made a promise to someone. A promise I couldn't keep. His name is Mr. Kapoor, and he lives in the city. He was my closest friend, but we had a falling out. and I never got the chance to make things right. I want you to find him, Arjun. Go to him and give him the small wooden box that's in the bottom drawer of my desk. It's something that belongs to him, and it's time it was returned. This journey won't be easy, but I believe it will help you heal. Along the way, you'll meet people who will teach you valuable lessons about life, love, and forgiveness. Trust your instincts, and don't be afraid to lean on others when you need help. Remember, Arjun, I'm always with you. Whenever you feel lost, look up at the stars. I'll be there, watching over you and guiding you. With all my love, Papa. Arjun wiped away his tears and carefully folded the letter. He opened the bottom drawer and found the small wooden box his father had mentioned. It was old and intricately carved, with a latch that seemed to have never been opened. Arjun's curiosity grew, but he respected his father's wishes and didn't open it. The next morning, Arjun packed a small bag with a few clothes, some money, and the wooden box. He left a note for his aunt, who had been staying with him since Ramesh's passing, explaining that he needed to go on a journey to fulfill his father's last wish. He didn't know what awaited him in the city, but he felt a strange sense of purpose. For the first time since his father's death, Arjun felt a glimmer of hope. The train ride to the city was long and unfamiliar. Arjun had never traveled alone before, and the bustling stations, the loud announcements, and the sea of strangers made him feel small and vulnerable. He clutched his bag tightly, the wooden box safely tucked inside, and tried to focus on his father's words. Trust your instincts and don't be afraid to lean on others when you need help. As the train rattled on, Arjun found himself sitting next to an elderly woman with kind eyes and a warm smile. She noticed his nervousness and struck up a conversation. "Where are you headed, Beta?" she asked gently. "To the city," Arjun replied, his voice soft. "I'm looking for someone." The woman nodded, as if she understood more than he had said. "The city can be overwhelming, but it's also full of opportunities. You'll find your way, don't worry." Her words comforted Arjun, and they spent the next few hours talking. She told him stories about her own life, her struggles, and how she had overcome them. By the time they reached the city, Arjun felt a little less alone. As they parted ways, the woman handed him a small packet of homemade snacks. "For the journey," she said with a smile. "Take care, Beta." Arjun stepped off the train and into the chaos of the city. The noise, the crowds, and the towering buildings were overwhelming, but he reminded himself of his mission. He took out the address his father had written in the letter, Mr. Kapoor's home, and asked for directions at a nearby tea stall. The streets were a maze, and Arjun got lost several times. Each time, someone helped him find his way, whether it was a street vendor, a passerby, or a kind stranger. Despite the city's cold exterior, Arjun began to see glimpses of warmth and humanity. Finally, after hours of walking and asking for directions, Arjun stood in front of a modest house in a quiet neighborhood. The gate was slightly ajar, and he could hear the faint sound of music playing inside. His heart raced as he approached the door and knocked. A middle-aged man with graying hair and a tired expression opened the door. "Yes?" he asked, his voice gruff but not unkind. "Are you Mr. Kapoor?" Arjun asked nervously. The man's eyes narrowed slightly. "Yes, I am. Who are you?" "My name is Arjun. I'm Ramesh's son." At the mention of Ramesh's name, Mr. Kapoor's expression changed. He looked stunned, as if he had seen a ghost. For a moment, he didn't say anything. Then, he stepped aside and gestured for Arjun to come in. The house was simple but cozy, with photographs and books lining the walls. Mr. Kapoor led Arjun to the living room and offered him a seat. "How is Ramesh?" he asked, his voice trembling slightly. Arjun's heart sank. He passed away a few weeks ago." Mr. Kapoor's face fell and he sat down heavily in a chair. "I'm sorry to hear that," he said quietly. "Your father was a good man. We were very close once." Arjun nodded and reached into his bag. "Before he died, he asked me to give you this." He handed the wooden box to Mr. Kapoor. The man took the box with shaking hands and stared at it for a long time. Then, with a deep breath, he opened it. Inside was a small, faded photograph of two young men, Ramesh and Mr. Kapoor, smiling and standing arm in arm. Beneath the photo was a handwritten note. Mr. Kapoor read the note silently, his eyes filling with tears. When he finally looked up at Arjun, his expression was a mix of sorrow and gratitude. "Thank you for bringing this to me," he said. "Your father and we had a misunderstanding many years ago. We stopped talking and I always regretted it. This box, it's a reminder of our friendship. I'm glad he remembered." Arjun felt a lump in his throat. "He wanted to make things right," he said softly. Mr. Kapoor nodded. "He did. And now, thanks to you, he has." Mr. Kapoor insisted that Arjun stay with him for a few days. "You've come all this way," he said. "The least I can do is make sure you're taken care of." Arjun hesitated but eventually agreed. He didn't have anywhere else to go, and Mr. Kapoor's kindness felt like a lifeline. Over the next few days, Mr. Kapoor shared stories about his friendship with Ramesh. They had grown up together, studied in the same school, and even started their first jobs at the same company. "Your father was like a brother to me," Mr. Kapoor said one evening as they sat in the living room. "We had dreams of building something great together, but life took us in different directions, and we let our pride get in the way." Arjun listened intently, hanging on every word. It was strange to hear about his father's life before he became a parent. It made Ramesh feel more real, more human. "What happened between you two?" Arjun asked cautiously. Mr. Kapoor sighed. "We had a disagreement about a business idea. I wanted to take a risk, but your father was more cautious. We argued, and things were said that couldn't be taken back. After that, we stopped talking. I moved to the city, and your father stayed behind. I always hoped we'd reconcile, but time slipped away." Arjun looked down at his hands. "He never told me about you." "I'm not surprised," Mr. Kapoor said with a sad smile. "Your father was a proud man, but he also carried a lot of guilt. I think he wanted to protect you from his mistakes." The conversation left Arjun with mixed emotions. He felt sad for the lost years between his father and Mr. Kapoor, but he also felt a sense of closure. By delivering the box, he had helped mend a broken bond, even if it was too late for his father to see it. One afternoon, Mr. Kapoor took Arjun to a small park near his house. As they walked, he said, "Arjun, I want to help you. You're young and you've been through a lot. If you're willing, I'd like to offer you a place to stay and a chance to continue your education here in the city." Arjun was taken aback. "But why? You don't even know me." Mr. Kapoor placed a hand on Arjun's shoulder. "I may not know you well, but I know your father. And I see so much of him in you. Ramesh would have wanted you to have a good life, and I want to honor his memory by helping you." Tears welled up in Arjun's eyes. For the first time since his father's death, he felt a sense of hope and belonging. "Thank you," he whispered. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Mr. Kapoor replied. "Just promise me you'll work hard and make your father proud." Arjun nodded, determination filling his heart. "I will." Arjun's life began to change in ways he could never have imagined. Mr. Kapoor enrolled him in a nearby school and helped him settle into a routine. The city, which had once felt overwhelming, slowly became familiar. Arjun made friends at school, joined a cricket team, and even started to enjoy the bustling energy of his new home. Mr. Kapoor became a mentor and father figure to Arjun. He helped him with his studies, encouraged his interests, and taught him valuable life lessons. "Life is about balance," Mr. Kapoor often said. "You have to work hard, but you also have to take time to enjoy the little things." One evening, as they sat on the balcony watching the sunset, Arjun asked, "Why did you decide to help me?" "You didn't owe me anything." Mr. Kapoor smiled. "Maybe not, but I owed it to myself. Helping you has given me a sense of purpose. It's my way of making amends for the past. Your father and I may not have reconciled in person, but through you, I feel like we've found peace." Arjun thought about this for a moment. "Do you think he's watching over us?" "I'd like to think so," Mr. Kapoor said, looking up at the sky. "Your father was a good man. and good men never truly leave us. They live on in the people they've touched and the lessons they've taught. As the days turned into weeks, Arjun began to heal. The pain of losing his father didn't go away, but it became easier to carry. He found solace in his new life and the connections he was building. He even started writing letters to his father, telling him about his day, his dreams, and the person he was becoming. One Saturday, Mr. Kapoor took Arjun to a community event at a local park. There were games, food stalls, and live music. As they walked around, Arjun noticed a group of kids his age playing a game of cricket. He hesitated for a moment, but Mr. Kapoor nudged him forward. "Go on," he said, "make some friends." Arjun joined the game, and before he knew it, he was laughing and running around like he hadn't in months. For the first time in a long while, he felt like a normal kid again. As he played, he caught Mr. Kapoor's eye and saw the man smiling proudly. That night, as they walked home, Arjun said, "Thank you for everything. I don't know where I'd be without you." Mr. Kapoor ruffled his hair. "You'd have found your way, Arjun. You're stronger than you think, but I'm glad I could be here to help." As the months passed, Arjun settled into his new life, but he couldn't shake the feeling that there was still something unresolved. One evening, while helping Mr. Kapoor organize some old boxes in the attic, he found a dusty photo album. Inside were more pictures of his father and Mr. Kapoor, smiling, laughing, and living life together. There were also letters, postcards, and small mementos from their shared past. Arjun held up a faded postcard. "You two were really close, weren't you?" Mr. Kapoor nodded, his eyes softening as he looked at the photos. "We were. Your father was my best friend. Losing him, it was like losing a part of myself." Arjun hesitated before asking, "Do you think he ever forgave you for what happened?" Mr. Kapoor sighed and sat down on an old trunk. "I don't know, Arjun, but I like to think he did. Forgiveness isn't always about saying the words. Sometimes it's about the actions we take to make things right. By helping you, I feel like I've honored his memory in the best way I could." Arjun thought about this for a moment. "Do you think I'll ever stop missing him?" "No," Mr. Kapoor said gently. "You'll always miss him. But over time, the pain will become a part of you, like a scar. It will remind you of the love you shared and the strength you've gained." The conversation stayed with Arjun long after they left the attic. He realized that forgiveness wasn't just about others, it was also about forgiving himself. He had carried guilt for not being able to save his father, for not saying everything he wanted to say before it was too late. But now he understood that his father's love was unconditional, and he didn't need to carry that burden anymore. One weekend, Mr. Kapoor took Arjun to visit his father's grave in their hometown. It was the first time Arjun had been back since the funeral. As they stood in front of the gravestone, Arjun felt a mix of sadness and peace. He placed a small bouquet of flowers on the grave and whispered, "I miss you, Papa. But I'm doing okay. I'm living the way you wanted me to." Mr. Kapoor placed a hand on Arjun's shoulder. "He'd be proud of you, Arjun. I know I am." As they walked away, Arjun felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He knew the journey wasn't over, but he was ready to face whatever came next. Years passed, and Arjun grew into a young man. With Mr. Kapoor's guidance and support, he excelled in school and discovered a passion for writing. He often wrote about his experiences, his father's love, the pain of loss, and the power of human connection. His stories resonated with others, and he began to share them with the world. One day, Arjun received a letter from a publisher. They wanted to turn his stories into a book. Overwhelmed with joy, he ran to Mr. Kapoor, who was now more like a second father to him. "They want to publish my book," Arjun exclaimed, waving the letter in the air. Mr. Kapoor's eyes filled with pride. "I always knew you had a gift, Arjun. Your father would be so proud of you." The book, titled The Wooden Box, became a bestseller. It touched the hearts of countless readers, many of whom had experienced loss and found solace in Arjun's words. At book signings and events, people would often share their own stories with him, and Arjun realized that his journey had given him a unique ability to connect with others. One evening, as Arjun sat on the balcony of the home he now shared with Mr. Kapoor, he reflected on how far he had come. He thought about his father and the wooden box that had started it all. It had been a symbol of loss, but it had also become a symbol of redemption and the enduring power of love. Mr. Kapoor joined him, carrying 2 cups of tea. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. Arjun smiled. "I was thinking about Papa, and you, and how lucky I am to have had both of you in my life." Mr. Kapoor handed him a cup of tea and sat down. "You've come a long way, Arjun, and I know your father is watching over you, smiling." Arjun looked up at the stars, just as his father had told him to do all those years ago. He felt a sense of peace, knowing that his father's love would always be with him, and as he sat there surrounded by the warmth of his new family, he realized that life was a journey of loss and love, of pain and healing, and of finding light even in the darkest moments. The wooden box, now displayed on a shelf in their living room, served as a reminder of the past and a symbol of hope for the future. Arjun knew that his father's legacy lived on, not just in the box, but in the love and connections he had built along the way. And so Arjun's story continued, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of love.
Subscribe and press the bell icon so that you never miss the amazing video.